This Stealing the Mind Bible Conference presentation is by Gina Loudon and is entitled Conservative Insight from Behind the Cameras. For a free catalog of hundreds of awesome Bible studies available on DVD video and audio CD, call Compass at 800-977-2177 or download and watch now at our website, compass.org.
It is such a complete honor and blessing to be here. I can't even tell you how surreal this is for me. I speak a lot at a lot of things, but this is really different for me because this is one of those times, where God brings a whole lot of things full circle, and then loves to slide the rug right out from under you, because that's how God works, as you know. He says, if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. And so I was telling God my plans for what I wanted to say to you tonight, and he changed that up on me a little bit right before, because I just got a feeling as I got to know some of you a little bit better, and as I heard Dr. Ham and others, speak from their hearts, there's something so special going on, and I think we have a chance to talk about something really, really big. And I wanted to bring that to you. My initial reaction, because it is a Christian group, and I speak to Christian groups a lot, usually in the pro-life context, or, there's a special mother's ministry or something like that. But I try to keep those sort of away from politics. But tonight, I think that we may need to discuss some of these things because we have such major decisions to make. So I asked special permission to be able to do that. And I don't want to get too political, but I want to address at least the political culture right now. Actually have a new book coming out on that after the elections ends. It's called Mad Politics, and it's talking about, have we gone completely out of our minds? My background is in psychology, for those of you who don't know, and I am a mother of 5, one by the blessing of adoption, who happens to have Down syndrome, and that is a testimony I love to give when I can. So if any of you are from the California area or want to have me in to talk about that, that may be my favorite topic, because this was a series of miracles that are almost unbelievable. I really have an orientation here that is so special that I want to share with you. And I don't even know if Dr. Ham is even still here. Did he leave? He left. Amazingly, I wish he hadn't left, because I really wanted him to know this. When my husband was in the Senate and the Creation Museum opened, who knows how long ago the Creation Museum opened? What year would that have been? 2007. Wow. Okay. Well, we were here, and we made a family pilgrimage. At that time, we lived in Missouri, where my husband was a senator, as mentioned, and we made our way here with our family. And at that time, I was a homeschooling mom. We lived on the salary of my husband, who would have been newly elected senator. The salary at the time was $35,000 a year, and that's what we lived on. And it was a very hard way to exist. And but we saw it as a sort of calling, and so we wanted to do it. So we came here one day, and we got here late because, children and diapers, and I don't know what happened to us. We were late. And Dr. Ham was standing there, and I double took on him because, of course, being a homeschool mom, you know this stuff, right? I'm like, that's him right there. And John's like, well, say hello. I said, oh my gosh, I use all of your curriculum. Thank you so much. And, I'm holding probably 3 babies at once and probably got 2 in the stroller. You know how it goes, moms. And he said, yeah, how do you like the museum? And I said, oh, this is amazing. I just wish we had days to do it. He said, well, how long are you here? And the museum is getting ready to close. And I said, well, we're here until, we leave tomorrow morning. And he took us, my family, the night at the museum, my kids always say, that's us, because he took us on a private tour. We were nothing, nobody. He didn't know anything about us. All he knew was that we had come a long way with our whole family. We probably looked road-worn, right? And he didn't want us to have to go home and not get to see the whole thing. So Ken Ham gave us a private tour of the Creation Museum. Now, this is special, not because it's just special, because it was special, but it's special because I'm a daughter, only child of two only children, and I tell you that because that excuses most of my little idiosyncrasies you're going to see along the way. Because we're all crazy by that point. Only children have an only child, that equals crazy. But anyway, that's why I study people who are crazy and write about it, right? But that was so special because I was raised by, my dad is a member of Zero Population Growth. He follows Paul Ehrlich. Those of you who were around back in the 70s know exactly who that is. My dad is a eugenicist and a scientist, and a very wealthy man who does a lot of things with his money that pretty much counter everything that I do with my life. My dad is a wonderful man. He's very committed to what he believes in. He just doesn't happen to be able to believe in God. I think he wants to, but he's not quite there yet. And so I've had a lot of conversations with him about creation. He's a very strong evolutionist. So my children spent that night in the museum with Dr. Ham, and my husband's father also, he was a Christian scientist. My husband was raised a Christian scientist, and my husband was saved in an amazing little church in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was through the catechism, reading the catechism, when he read the words, "He died for you." My husband said it was lightning bolt. I dropped to my knees. And this is a man who I'd been trying to get into church for so long, but every time I went, it was always tithing Sunday. And that was exactly what he'd been taught to believe about churches, is that all they want is your money. And it just never worked out for me. But God had it. God had it. He always has it. We know that, right? And so the next day, we got back to St. Louis, and my kids run in all excited. Look what we did. Oh, I left out a great part, too. So Dr. Hammond, his generosity that day, he didn't know our need. We probably didn't look very needy. We were needy. And he took us in the store that day and turned us loose and said, pick out everything you want. I needed a truck. I'm not kidding. I was not going to pass up this opportunity for my children. And to this day, we have a library full. Some of it we did pay for. But he was just so generous, and I wanted to make that point. So the next day, we're back in St. Louis. My children run in to greet my father-in-law, the Christian scientist, who's very upset, this crazy Christian freak girl that took their son away from their faith. And my kid said, "You believe in the Bible, right, Grandpa?" And he said, "Oh, honey, of course I do. Of course I do." And then so my oldest daughter, very precocious still, she says, "But Grandpa, do you believe in the whole Bible? Like even the part about Genesis, like even Adam and Eve?" And he goes, "Well, now, honey," and he was a very sweet man, miss him. And he said, "Well, now, honey, you know, I believe in the theory of the Bible, but things like Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark and Jonah and the whale, those things didn't really happen. Those are allegories." And so, and he said, and today in this world, we're just going to have to accept, and I know you hear this every day, we're just going to have to accept that we know evolution really happened. And my daughter looked right in his eyes, and she said, "Well, then where are the half species?" And to this day, honestly, I have to tell you, because of that grounding moment, I very seldom worry about my children. They're going to go through their phases. They're going to do their things. I don't have perfect children. Love them. Oh, they're amazing. But I don't worry because I know that they have that grounding. So when Dr. Ham was talking about that, I just thought, people really have to understand how important that is. And I want to say one other thing quickly about Compass. I was telling them that I really do love to give fundraising speeches because I love to talk about things that other people can't say about themselves. And this is what nobody can say about Compass that I can tell you. Here was a mom with 5 children trying to make it on $35,000 a year, trying to be a good wife, trying to be a good mom, trying to raise Christian children, making mistakes every single day. I had 2 master's degrees and a PhD, and I was asking God the whole time, am I doing what you want? Because I wasn't sure. And I remember so clearly the day I discovered Compass. And it was a little Bible study. If you don't subscribe to their Good Morning, Lord, I don't know what I would do without it. On those days where you just can't do the whole Bible study, this is just short and sweet. And then there's a little life example after that. And then if you want to go deeper, there's plenty. But if you really only have that 5-minute place, at least you got that done. So for your new believer friends, although this is red meat, folks, they're not kidding around here. This is not any seeker kind of thing. But if you've got people who are struggling, who are starting, who understand really the truth of the Bible, as Dr. Ham so carefully illustrated, you've got to refer them to the Good Morning Lord. It has saved me on more occasions than I can even express to you. They asked me to speak about behind the scenes in media. And I want to do that just a little bit because it's fun. There are things you don't see and that you don't know, like that every single hit I do barefoot. I live on the beach. I'm out on the beach playing volleyball with my kids, and I know I have a hit in 10 minutes. Okay, it takes a little longer to actually get the hair and makeup done, but I go in there and get the hair and makeup done really fast, sit down in that little black chair in front of a big monitor that has a beautiful picture behind me that looks like I'm sitting on the ocean, and the ocean is actually right behind me, but it's through a wall. And I sit down there in bare feet, and a lot of times I'll have on, jeans and a t-shirt and just throw on a jacket over it. So now you know one of the little secrets back there. One of the times I did one of my things, I was polishing my nails, kind of a last-minute girl here, polishing my nails, and Greg Gutfeld was hosting for Bill O'Reilly, and I was on Bill O'Reilly's show on Fox News, and they forgot to tell me that they were going live. And in that hit, you can kind of see that I was polishing my nails, and I looked up, and I was live. And so that, I hope I can do this.
Joining us now from San Diego, a great place, conservative columnist Gina Loudon.
She also happens to be a great author and conservative columnist, Gina Loudon.
This is Dr. Gina Loudon.
Political sensation, Gina Loudon.
Wonks like me spend a lot of time looking at the relationship between the politics and the psychology.
Tell us, what's the psychology behind that?
Yeah, people want to say, well, there's something different about this generation. Greta, the generation gap is even worse than I thought. Some people would see Hillary and the way she bullied the women that her husband harassed and abused as a poor defense of women. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, is talking about how, hey, if the ship goes down, at least we're going to all go down together and you're going to have lots of free stuff. For me and many women that I spoke to, what we really wanted were very simple things: economic security, national security, and constitutional adherence. If you really believe in the integrity of women and the strength of women, and you really want equality, then asking for free stuff just doesn't make sense. All Americans care about in this election is being able to provide for their families and to be able to keep them safe. People who actually watch debates are the most compelled by the person with the biggest personality and whom they deem has the most integrity. We can explain it to you, we just can't understand it for you.
Well, that's very condescending.
I say sprout a backbone for once in your life. It's more like a cupcake. Don't touch our bacon.
So one of the first questions I am asked when I tell people, or when people, this is what I get, actually, every time I walk through an airport, it doesn't matter where I go, people come up to me and they go, "You look so familiar, where have we met?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure we haven't." Because I know that, I was just on your television while you were in the kitchen making spaghetti or something. You don't really look at people like me because all we do is news, and it's so boring. And these days, it's so depressing and so distressing. Why would anyone watch news? I don't even blame you. But so that's the one question I get is all the time is, so when they do figure out what I do, who is your favorite host? People ask me that all the time. Who do you like the best? Or they'll ask me, is Neil Cavuto really as much of a foodie as he pretends to be on TV? Or they'll say, is Sean Hannity really just like that big kid that's just so down to earth? Or, those kinds of questions. But the other question I get is, can you get me on TV? Which is a little bit harder than answering the first question. But so today, on the plane, I had written my speech a couple weeks back, kind of just some things I wanted to say to you guys about media. And as I said, God had a little change of plans. My daughter had a minor crisis this morning, which seemed huge to her in that moment. And so I had to kind of be there for her as I'm on the plane texting her. And so what she did is what she'll often do, what all of my children will often do when they have a problem, is they love their Uncle Sean Hannity. And she texted him, and he gave her answers and made her feel much better. And that's really sweet because my husband and I were super busy today, and he was there for her. So I asked him in the series of texts, I said, do you have a message for these people tonight? Because this is a really special group, and I want to make sure that they have something, especially from you. And he said, yes, I'm going to ask them to please pray for our country, that we can restore it, and that we don't elect Hillary. Those are your personal message. That is your personal message from Sean Hannity. It's a battle. As Dr. Ham told you, we are in a war. Is there anyone in this room who doubts that? Because I can prove that. We are in a war. Our battleground is yes in our churches, yes in our homes, but our battleground on the part of our culture, where is it? Where can we fight the most effectively? You've got to start with church and home, I get that. But for your public part of that battle, where is it? It's not watching Fox News. It's not even watching my show, America Trends, which I hope you'll tune into, 10 o'clock every night. It's in social media. And I know you don't like that answer because I know your heart. And I didn't like that answer either. But I'm going to ask you right now, how many of you are, and I'm going to have to do this because I can't really see, how many of you are on social media right now? Raise your hands high. Raise your hands high. Okay, guys, we're not going to win. We are not going to win this election, but more importantly, the revival that we know we're capable of, it is not going to happen until you're on social media. I'm going to give you some straight talk here because I want you to take something home that can actually be effective in our battle. Yes, church, yes, home, but if you don't take it all the rest of the way to the battlefield where it's ugly and bloody, you can't win. How do you think you're going to win? Where do you think today's generation gets their news? You remember the days when you were growing up and you had the 5 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock, I don't remember now, 5 or 6 o'clock news, you had the evening news, right? You had the morning news, you had the little morning shows that did a little bit of newsy stuff. You had your 6 o'clock news, and you had your 10 o'clock news. You got your little doses of news throughout the day. The problem is we're still in a mindset that our kids are getting the news that way, and our grandchildren, they're not. They don't watch the news. They don't ever watch the news. They watch comedy shows. They watch The Daily Show. They watch Fallon, right? But most of their news comes right out of this box right here. This is a computer if you can't see it. Most of their news comes right out of this box right here. So if you want to affect the next generation, keep your home fortified. Keep your church fortified. And then get out there and take the battle to the front lines where you can actually have an effect. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. And I'm not here to humiliate you guys. I love you guys. This is exhorting to the best I can do because I was you just a few years ago. How many of you, I got to look again, how many of you are not on social media because you're concerned about your privacy? Go ahead and raise your hands. So I understand that. Be honest, because I know there's a lot more of you in this room. Your reason for not being on social media is because of privacy. You're worried somebody's going to track you down or know things about you, the government, namely, Facebook, namely, Twitter. I get it. Okay. Usually I get a lot more hands than that, so I'm kind of surprised. But I believe you. The reason that your privacy is not an issue is because you can go on any social media with a fictitious name and picture. You don't have to be you. You can be Daffy Duck, okay? You don't have to be you. People are on there anonymously all day long. But here's what I do know. If you're not on there, there's 10,000 trolls out there who want to turn your grandchildren and your children and your nieces and your nephews into atheists tomorrow. And they're there. Why aren't you there? That's my question for you. Now, I know some people are going to say time. You know, I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to interview Charles Woods. Who knows who that is without me going any further? His son was Ty Woods, who was killed in Benghazi. Ty Woods was a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL from my part of town where I live in San Diego. And so my heart's always really gone out to that family in particular. And I've interviewed Charles several times for my show and other things that I've done. And he invited me, I was shocked, he invited me to return to the graveside with him a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago at this point, for the first time since he'd been back there for Ty's funeral and burial, when Hillary Clinton looked him in the eye and said, "This is about a video." And he invited me there, and it was funny because we were just talking faith, family, freedom. I felt like I shouldn't be there. It felt like such a personal moment, and here I am, a reporter with a microphone. It just felt, wrong. And so I didn't want to talk about politics at all. And so we talked about faith. And I said, what's your best advice? Your best advice for people coming up behind you, for your own children and grandchildren? He said, my best advice, 5 minutes a day in the Word of God. If you just do that. And I told him immediately about Compass because to me, it's such an easy, consumable, and yet very meaty component of my day. And how are you going to get that word out? How are you going to tell the next generation if you're not there? Because they're not going to get it while you're screaming at your TV. I do it too. And they're not going to get it when you're writing beautiful letters to your friends and family, because social media is really where their brains are. For better, for worse, that is our battleground. A lot of people have gone to war on a battleground they didn't like. Many people have fallen for our freedom who fought on foreign soil in countries they hated, with values that flew in the face of everything that's American. This is our battleground right now. We may not like it. We may resent it. We may think it's the Antichrist. A lot of people do. I get that too. But I'm telling you, it's where we have to contend right now. So for those of you who don't think you have enough time, that 5 minutes a day, rule of thumb, you know what? You can get a lot done. You can tweet out a Compass Bible study in 5 minutes a day. You can not only do that, if you get efficient, you can put it on your Facebook page, your Instagram page, and your Twitter page. Get someone to connect the 3 of those for you so you only have to post it once. You can do it in 1 minute. I don't make this up. So now you have time, right? And now you don't have to worry about privacy, right? Is there any other reason why you wouldn't contend in this battle? I just want to know. Raise your hand if you have a good one. You guys are the best. That's where we are. And I just want to make sure that, I love the idea of a revival too, but a revival has to happen because we're touching the next generation too. It can't just be us. I know, I still think just come, Jesus, come quickly. But it has to be them too. We don't want them to not even understand the inerrancy of God's word that we all get because we're here, right? The things that Ken Ham talks about, you can tweet out those videos in a minute, boom, right? I hope you'll join me in that. I want to talk to you a little bit. I want to give you a chance, actually, to ask anything that you want to ask me right now about our current political climate so that I don't want to preach to you about wonkish stuff that I do every single day, but I have really strong, really faith-based in my own personal walk with Jesus through my life, which hasn't been perfect or easy, but my reasons for what I'm doing these days in fighting against a political force that I think is the most evil we've ever confronted, they are very faith-based. And so I want to get from you, if there's anything in particular that I can answer for you about that or anything else. So I want to turn it over to you, and there's a microphone right in the center of the room, so raise your hand if you have a question for me.
Thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
I'm sorry, I have a senior moment. I cannot remember the name of the reporter who wrote the book. She's an investigative reporter out of Washington, D.C. She was exposing a lot of things all through, back in George Bush and current Obama stuff. And she became isolated because when they found out she was doing the deep investigative reporting, they isolated her. And I'm wondering, does that happen to you, knowing that you're a Christian, frequently?
Thanks for that. There aren't a lot of Christians in media. Even you have a lot of conservatives, but they tend to lean sort of libertarian. And I have my libertarian ideas also. I love a free market, for example, economically. But yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. But you know what? We knew that going in, right? And Jesus promises us that when we're persecuted, that's him. I mean, not him persecuting us, but that's because he's in our lives, and that's who Satan's going to attack. So I don't mind, sort of sometimes being used in that way. Do I ever get discouraged? Of course. I'll leave the network's name out of this, but I bet you can deduce the network. I was on a network. In fact, I've had this happen to me more than one time, but I was talking about how the Clinton Foundation keeps 80%, and that's actually a low number. I actually skew the statistics so that they don't get as angry, but the actual statistic is somewhere upward of 90% of the money that the Clinton Foundation makes, they use to line their own pockets, and they pay Chelsea $1 million, and they pay all their friends, and none of that money, 10%, less than 10% of that money, actually ever goes to the charities that they talk about all the time in the media, right? And so I made that statistical statement that 80% of the money that goes to the Clinton Foundation actually ends up contributing to the lifestyle of a very, very wealthy billionaire, Bill and Hillary Clinton. And they cut my mic. First she said, "What's your source on that?" And then I started answering her. My source is Clinton Cash. I know Peter Schweitzer, the author of Clinton Cash. I worked for Andrew Breitbart with Peter Schweitzer. I know him well. And it was like me saying, my brother. I mean, I know this guy. It wasn't hard for me to come up with where I read these facts. They were researched. The data is proven. And anyway, she said, "Where did you get your facts?" And I said, "Well, I got it from the Clinton Cash book." "Well, if you were watching that day," she said, "where did you get your facts?" They'd cut my mic. There was a long pause. And they tried to make it look like that I didn't know the answer. And then they pulled me back in when I said, "It's everywhere, though. You can Google it." She goes, "Oh, so you get your research from Google. I see." Now, first of all, Google's a search engine. It's not a website. Yeah, I do get a lot of my research from Googling the Wall Street Journal and Googling WorldNet Daily and Googling Breitbart News. Yes, I do. But they didn't give me time to say that either. They cut that off, too. The left had an absolute field day with this, and they went after me guns ablazing, saying I didn't know my sources, I used Google for my research. The whole thing was just, and so yes, there is that. But those are the moments I would submit to everybody here. Those are the moments where God says, "I've got your back," right? Because yes, friends are going to turn on you. There's a lot of really ugly things. I was thinking originally in my speech, I was going to compare the media to Noah's Ark, the cleanup that goes on and some of the other things. I really had this all nailed down as a humorous speech, but I really just felt God taking me a different direction on this. But it's true. It's not a very clean business. I remember when my husband was in the Senate, people would say, "How many of the conservatives there would you say are actually convicted Christians?" And I remember saying, "I can count them on one hand." I feel exactly the same way about the world I live in now, which is the media. I can count them on one hand. I don't like telling you that, but you guys knew you were set apart. You know you're the remnant. You know we're not a big number. God never says that. And so I'm okay with that. This is where he has me contending. Okay. So I'm okay with it. But it is hard. I had a young, beautiful, sweet girl trying to make it, she wants to do what I do. I've been trying to help her, mentor her. And she wrote me last night and sent me a screenshot. You guys know that's like a picture of one of the producers that had basically said, "Yeah, I'll get you on our show, but I want..." It's called Friends with Benefits. That's how he worded it. It's a very kind of ugly request. And I said, "Get used to it. Do not be insulted. You hold your values. You never, ever let down, not for one moment, because of what Dr. Ham said about when you open the door a little bit, the next time they're going to crack it this much and this much and this much." So you have to be so above reproach at every moment that you just can't be taken down, because they do prowl around us. You know that. So I wouldn't say my life is any different from anyone's in this room. I'm attacked no more often than you are, maybe in different ways, maybe in front of more people. But I wake up in the morning and I honestly, you guys will love this. On my phone, Sarah can attest to this, it wakes me up and it says, "Well, good morning, racist, sexist, homophobic bigot." Because I figure by that time, nobody can say anything to me that day that's going to hurt, right? Thanks for your question. Anyone else?
Anybody have a question? Way over there.
Gonna get your workout after that dinner tonight. I planted that one.
I don't really know how much you can say, but I'd like to know your feelings on Gary Johnson. I will.
No, I appreciate the question. And listen, guys, it's been a rough year. I understand that question, and I have a lot of people that ask that question. Right now, we have a two-party system. Gary Johnson couldn't win if he was a great guy. I personally don't think he's a really great guy. I can tell you, living on the border in San Diego, that the drugs are a real issue. Now, I told you I tend to lean libertarian on many issues. I'm a freedom lover. I really am so drawn to the idea of freedom. But legalization of drugs is a bad idea, and it doesn't do the things they say it's going to do. It's a lie. It's a lie from a moral standpoint. We already know that. All we have to do is look back at the 70s. I have a stepbrother right now who's dying because he smoked pot his whole life because he got addicted. It's not a healthy thing for our culture any more than any drug is. Is it separate and distinct from alcohol? I don't know. That's for people to get into the minutia. I'm not even going to go there, but I can tell you that economically it's not healthy, physically it's not healthy, morally it's not healthy. I can't really understand why we're trying to legalize one more thing that isn't healthy, especially when you consider things like, I live on the San Diego border, and they said, oh, if we legalize drugs, it will make it so the drug cartels don't commit crimes anymore on our borders. Really? Do you know what they've done? They don't sell pot anymore. We can get it here, right? So you know what they sell? Heroin. And it's everywhere. And I'm telling you, coming soon to a state near you, if you haven't seen the numbers, I wish I had them on me. I'm terrible at memorizing things. I'm totally ADHD. But I am telling, if you can't tell already, but I am telling you, the numbers for heroin are mind-blowing. They've well surpassed. And you know, you can't get off of heroin. Heroin is a lifetime addiction. And not only that, it's killing kids. We see it all the time in San Diego. We get several a week that will die because the doses, I don't know, they do weird things to the drugs. It's not a good idea. Gary Johnson can't win even if he were a good guy. I don't think he's a good guy. I appreciate the idea of freedom, but freedom only comes from the authority that Ken Ham was talking about. It has to come from God. And if you take God out of your platform in your party, like the Democrats did and like the libertarians basically have, then you can't, then what about abortion? Why not? Where's the authority? There's no authority without God. So we have to choose between, exactly as Dr. Ham outlined. I know I sound like such a sycophant, don't I? But I really appreciate what he said because it's either man's word or God's word. And if you are a pure libertarian, you are shirking God's word. You're saying man's ideas about God's word are good enough. Well, to me, they're not. And to me, the reason America is great is because America is good. And the reason America is good is because we were founded on Christian, constitutional, Judeo-Christian, constitutional principles. And that has given us our freedom like no place else in the world. And we can't give that up for Gary Johnson or anybody else who wants their moment of glory because we had two candidates that we couldn't agree on. Thanks for your question. Got you running. Look at you.
I was just curious if you can share with us how we as a Christian community can use media as well as a lot of other groups that are a minority compared to the Christian community.
I think this is a wonderful place for Christian authenticity. It's about being who you are in your daily life. You know, I've got some good friends here, the Hearts. I've got another good friend back there, Chris Babb. They came from different parts of the country tonight to be here. And do you know how I know them? One way, social media. Okay? And I think that, you know, one of the things that Rob said to me a little bit earlier, he said, you know, I love watching your life. It's just putting what you want to share. And I told him some things tonight, and I go, you know, that's the kind of thing I don't post on social media. You like the bad day, or my child was telling me I'm a bad mom, because we all have those days, you know? But it's about you just posting the things that you think are maybe unique, might touch somebody. So it's just, you know, I posted pictures of the beautiful stained glass in my church last week because I just thought it was so pretty. And I knew that there were a lot of artsy people that may not relate to me on politics, but they might relate to me on my appreciation of art, right? I also have a dog, a little dog. He has his own Facebook page. His name's Gipper. You can follow him if you'd like. He's on Facebook, and he's cute as a button. And so, I go about my life with Gipper, and I take pictures of Gipper, and I post them all over Instagram because for some reason people on Instagram love French bulldogs, so I post them there. And it helps me relate to those animal people who might not otherwise relate to me through my politics. So I try to make sure that I'm multifaceted, that I tell a little bit of a story, and then that I can go in and also be there to edify the body, because people are hurting out there. There are people that literally spend their whole entire lives on social media. And those people need people like you there who have a healthy attitude about it. And the reason you're there is not for attention or to post pictures of yourself that, portray you as something you're not, but to really just kind of be there for the community. So again, if you spend 5 minutes a day and you posted your favorite Bible verse that day you read, or today, I posted a little thing. I try to do it. I used to be better about it. Rob loves it, and thank you for that. It's called His Signature on This Day. Because I live on the ocean, I get that beautiful Pacific sunset every night, and I don't ever want to take it for granted. Now I work right over that time. But I used to post pictures of that every day. So just His Signature on This Day, and I made a hashtag, which is the little pound sign. You guys all know that, right? And that's what makes things trend in social media. And so it's just your story. What are you loving today? What made you happy today? What did you see today that troubled you? I think all those stories are okay to tell. When you're your authentic self in Christ, He will tell you what to post. He will, I promise you. And it will be so easy and so much fun for you. I lost an Alabama hat. I'm Roll Tide, by the way. Love Alabama. And I lost an Alabama hat in the lake, and I love this Alabama hat. I didn't want to seem too superficial, but I really loved this hat. I have a lot of Alabama hats, but that one I loved. And I lost it on a wet bike riding around with my daughter, and she told me I was going to, and I did. And I posted on Facebook. I'm like, can anybody find this hat for me? I wanted a special dress for my daughter for her 21st birthday, and they helped me find that. So you can even go to your audience for help, those people who are following you, and say, hey, does anybody know about? But the whole thing is about drawing your audience in and making them feel a part of your life that you want to share, and then being as absolutely transparent and authentic as you can without telling them everything, because nobody deserves to be in your private life. Does that make sense? Well, that's the magic about social media, to be honest with you. It is both corporate and individual all at the same time.
Thank you. Other groups have the major network's ear, day in and day out.
Yeah,
so
that's because they're on social media. That's why I'm here, trying to be as calm as I possibly can in a total moment of panic when I see that about 10 to 20% of us are on social media because we don't understand that okay, let me just explain one thing. This is how I do a show every night. The name of my show is America Trends. I am the 10 o'clock news person on a network in 32 million homes on cable. We're also on Roku, and we're also, several other places. Anyway, so 32 million people every single night are going to hear this: the top 10 things trending on social media. That's all I talk about every night. You know why? Because that's where all the money is. That's where all the advertisers go, right? That's what people want to watch. They don't want to watch you talk about, I get good friends of mine who write books. We were just talking about my friend Eric Metaxas, so I'll just take him for example. And he asked me one day, I've got a new book. He's my favorite author. I love this guy. I don't know if you've read Bonhoeffer, but you need to. It's amazing. And Amazing Grace is really good too. The movie was based on his book. And so he says, can you have me on the show tonight? And I said, I'm so sorry, I can't. I can't think of an angle to relate it to a trending topic. If it's not trending in social media, the news won't cover it. So who creates the trends? The people on social media. And when 20% of us in here, and I'm being generous because I think it was more like 10 when you raised your hands, honestly, and I don't even know how active you are, but when only like 10% of us are on social media, How can we even fantasize? God must be looking at us going, really? How can we fantasize about any sort of revolution or any sort of revival when we're not even communicating our own thoughts? That's why that silly little hashtag, that's the pound sign that I was telling you about, that's why that's so important, because that's how you make things trend, is by using that little hashtag, okay? And that's also how you connect with other people. I always wish I could, when I come to these, I always wish I could teach a social media class. But I do want you guys to follow me, and I meant to put the thing, I guess it's, okay, never mind. I want you guys to follow me. My social media will be up here. It's at Real Dr. Gina in most instances, and I'm going to be at the book signing table over here, I think, or out there. Right out there, and I will definitely give you cards with my social media. But I want to get on my Facebook tomorrow. How many people are here?
650.
I want to have 650 new people on my Facebook tomorrow. Deal? Do we have time for one more question? Where are we?
Last question.
Okay.
Here we go.
How did you go from being a homeschooling mom to a Fox News dynamo?
God, I had no choice in this. You know that. Like, you get out of bed in the morning, you think you know what you're doing, and you have no clue how that day's going to go, and that really is. I think that audiences are dying for somebody who will just level with them, who will just tell them the truth. We've seen that with Mr. Trump. We've seen how even though he's clumsy, even though people don't like him, even though people don't like his approach, he's crass, he's arrogant, whatever people want to say about him, he was honest. And I think that's what got America's attention about him, don't you? And I think that that's what will get America's attention about whoever God decides to use next. And I don't know what to say about that. It just happened. It really just literally happened. Girl from Missouri. And first call was, there was a, you remember when John, just a minute, I'll get it. Okay, I won't. Having the senior moments already. John Mackey, there it is. John Mackey wrote that op-ed. Do you remember this when Obamacare came out? And John Mackey is the CEO of Whole Foods. And Whole Foods is a liberal store that all the granola types were, all the little agnostic, atheists, people love to shop in. How dare the CEO of their store that they spend all their money in for too expensive gluten-free stuff, how dare he trash their president? He's probably a racist. How dare he write an op-ed against Obamacare, right? World went mad. So the unions were picketing at my Whole Foods, and I had held a tea party the day before just as a volunteer. What do you want to call me, like a community organizer? I don't know. I had held a tea party the day before that in Keener Plaza with 10,000 people. And I thought, and my husband got home from work and he said, "You want to go across the picket line?" I know, we're wonky. That's what we do for entertainment. It's kind of sad. You want a date night, babe? Want to go across the picket line? Woo! So I said, I do, but let's do it in a week, because, they'll still be there, right? Because they're all paid to be there. We're all out there volunteering, but they're paid by George Soros a lot of times, just so you know, including the rioters, by the way, in Charlotte right now, 70% of them paid by George Soros. And so I said, I'd like to take those 10,000 people I saw yesterday with me to that instead. And I'd like to ask everybody there to get $50 worth of groceries instead. And I'd like to see if we can affect Mr. Mackey's stocks. And so I did, and Greta Van Susteren called me the next day and said, "What the heck was that? Would you come on my show and talk about it?" That's how it started. And then I went on The Daily Show a couple times, and Neil Cavuto and Sean Hannity, and it just kind of blossomed from there. So that's how it happened. I want to say one thing, if I can, because I thought the first question I was going to get was, what are you going to do about the president? Are you going to vote for Donald Trump? If you're comfortable saying you are comfortable, don't you love? And I talk for a living, isn't that amazing? If you're comfortable saying you're comfortable voting for Mr. Trump, raise your hand right now. I just want to know what I'm dealing with. Maybe I should have asked it the other way, because that's a lot of you. If you're still uncomfortable, raise your hand. Not too many. Wow. Interesting. Those numbers are sure depleting as I go forward in these speeches, because it used to be half the room, and I wasn't talking to Christians. So, a couple of things about him. When I prayed about this, I was a Ted Cruz supporter, big time. I met him years ago. I interviewed him. I thought he was here to save us. I really did. And about a year and a half ago, I kept in my prayer, as God will do, getting this still small voice, right? And it was, you'll know them by their fruit. You'll know them by their fruit. I thought, that's really weird. That's really weird. But I'll tell you what, this entire election, from the moment I started taking a look at Mr. Trump's children, I work hard to be a mom. I'll tell you what, my kids are awesome, but I'll be amazed if they do that kind of awesome stuff in their lives at such young ages as these people have that sort of level of diplomacy. And are they perfect people? No. But here's what I thought about. Here's where we have such an opportunity. Tomorrow morning when I wake up and I have 650 new followers on my Dr. Gina page, and I go retweeting and sharing the stuff that you've shared with me, and we start a dialogue and we start impacting social media together, they're going to know us by our fruit. They sure are. And then, as the Christian community, and I've been so proud of this effort, has, instead of rebuking Mr. Trump, as I was told tonight at my table, we're not to judge unbelievers. We're to judge believers. Mr. Trump is not a believer. I think he's ripe for it, but I don't think he's there. What an amazing, how many years have we prayed for our leaders? How many years have we asked God, will you bring us a believer? And we said, well, yeah, Reagan was good, but his wife was a pro-abort. We didn't really, I don't know. We love him now, but in the day, you remember, we were all like, yeah, I don't, Reagan, I don't, He's a movie guy, okay? This guy is ripe for a complete transition to Christianity. Do you see that? Do you see how ripe he is? And we have to respond with what? With what? We have the opportunity of a lifetime. We have prayed for someone to come along who was ripe for true transformation in this country. I believe that Mr. Trump so appreciates what we are as Christians. I believe he's seen our love. I believe he's seen our hearts. That doesn't mean that I think he's perfect or that I think he's a Christian. I think he wants to be a Christian. How many people do you know who think they're Christians who want to be Christians? Let's be real here. Yeah. Can we be patient with him? Can we love him through this? This is an incredible thing that he has sacrificed, honestly. The money, the time away from his family. As a senator's wife, let me tell you, I told my husband, you ever want to run for office again? Bring me divorce papers. And I'm joking because that's probably the exact next thing God will do to me. But I'm saying it's not an easy life. It was horrible. I hated that life. I love the life I live now. I get called every name before 8 o'clock in the morning that you can think of, right? But I'd rather do this all day long than watch my husband, who is such a good man, go through that again with the media and stuff. It's a sacrifice. It is. Nobody does this based solely on an ego trip. Now, is Mr. Trump on an ego trip? Yes! Oh my gosh! Is he a narcissist? Holy cow, yes! Like, do I really need to answer these questions for you? Does that mean he's not redeemable? Listen, he went to bat for you. When's the last time someone insulted you as a voting bloc by calling you deplorable and unredeemable, and you had a politician go back in their face and say, don't you say that about my supporters? He went to bat for you. Can you wait? God's doing a work. I don't believe he's a prophet, but I do believe he was called for such a time as this. I do believe we could have a wholesale reversal of the Johnson Amendment, which and I do believe that he is a man in the arena. I want to close with that because I want you to listen carefully to really, I think, one of my favorite historical musings. We have politics right where we want it. For the first time in our lives, at least since Reagan, maybe longer, honestly. We can do this. We've got to get together. You've got to go fight on the battleground that you don't like and I don't like either, but we still have to go there. And it smells and it's awful and it's horrible. But God has called you to contend, or you wouldn't be sitting here listening to me tonight. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. In the arena. Whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, because we all do, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. May your place never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory or defeat. We're only free because we're brave, and it's up to you to stay brave and to contend in the arena, and I'll be right there with you. Thank you so much.
This has been Conservative Insight from Behind the Cameras, presented by Gina Loudon. To receive a free catalog of hundreds of awesome Bible studies on DVD, video, and audio CD, all using and defending a literal translation of the Bible, information on upcoming Bible conferences in your area, or details of our missionary outreach and trips to Israel, call Compass at 800-977-2177 24 hours a day, or visit us on the web at compass.org. And be sure to like us on Facebook. Search facebook.com/Compass Bible.